brain.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Why should you want to know? Don't you mind about the future?
And now, for your listening pleasure, streaming live from Big Johnson Studios, it's the Ledge Radio Show with media entertainment phenom JD.
Welcome to the program. Phone lines are open, 239-689-8674. You can email me, jd@theledgeradioshow.com. Thanks to executive producer Tripod Billy. We are streaming live video on Ustream TV, and just search The Ledge Radio Show. We're also on iTunes tomorrow and available by podcast at podcastcafelive.com. We've got all of our episodes up there, and Tripod Billy works diligently to get those put on as soon as possible. It's typically within a few hours or the very next day that you can catch us on Podcast Cafe, so we appreciate his help with that. Just scouring some of the news networks today, and one of the latest news items that I think is of importance and quite hypocritical, which is typical of the Democrats and usually typical of the Republicans, at least the establishment to some degree. So for a while now, after the Edward Snowden leaks, with all of the NSA, CIA, reading through our emails and following all of our Facebook posts and our Facebook private chats, checking out what we're looking at on the internet, without our permission, without obtaining warrants, and all of us up in arms, all of us private citizens up in arms about this, going to the senators and the state, the reps, state reps, and basically anybody that'll listen. A lot of times it's our local reps that are concerned about it because they're local people like we are. But more often than not, specifically the establishment and of course your Democrats, they have no problem with this. They think it's all it's all for the good of the people, the good of the government. It's going to help us catch terrorists, which it boggles my mind anyway, because the Democrats didn't agree with the war on terror as a whole anyway. But they never once had a problem with the CIA or the NSA tapping our phone records, our Verizon account, our AT&T accounts, any of our internet searches or personal emails and such, like I mentioned, until the Senate Intelligence Committee, headed by Democrat Dianne Feinstein from California, Miss Anti-Gun, period, even though she's got her own handgun, concealed handgun permit, but she didn't want anybody to know about that because it's okay for her to protect herself with her army of, her army of security forces that protect her. But when she found out that the CIA searched her committee's computers, she's calling the matter now a defining moment. And this comes out of NBC News, published this morning by Casey Hunt. So we appreciate NBC News for breaking this. Of course, NBC, the National Barack channel, their slant is that now that Feinstein is on board, that they won't report the fact that we on the right have been complaining about this all along, but just now that Senator Feinstein's going to take action. So she calls it a defining moment for the oversight of the Intelligence Committee. And to quote her, she says, "I have grave concerns that the CIA's search may well have violated the separation of powers principles embodied by the United States Constitution." Okay, so for once, Dianne Feinstein actually brings the word Constitution into anything she's said when she's completely against any type of gun right or free speech, unless it involves her free speech or her own gun right. She goes on to say, including the speech and debate clause. She says it may have undermined the constitutional framework essential to effective congressional oversight of intelligence activity or any other government function. So basically, I think what probably happened is the CIA said, you know what, while we're in here searching everybody else's crap, let's look at what the Senate Intelligence Committee is doing, because they're the ones that pay our bills. So maybe we can, if nothing else, we'll just listen in, but who knows, maybe we'll just collect some data on them so we can, so we've got, something to use against them, some leverage if they ever decide to cut our budget and to, get rid of some of us. So I guess what's good for the goose is not good for the gander in this scenario, which is, like I said, typical of all Democrats and the hypocrisy that follows them. So the one time that Feinstein is being looked at through a magnifying glass without her permission, she throws a fit. Now all of a sudden it's a big issue. So now they're going to investigate. We shall see how far that goes, because I'm sure that as soon as she said that, she was reminded by Barack Obama and his cohorts that, hey, we don't want to get rid of any of these programs. We need these to beat down the conservative groups out there and to keep them under a watchful eye so we can feed information to the IRS to keep these groups from gaining any voting power like they did with Lois Lerner, and use Lois Lerner as their heavy to bully the conservative groups that were trying to form 501c4s, which essentially is voter suppression from the left. They always complain that the right are the ones that suppress votes. Of course, they always say that we suppress the votes of blacks and women and Latinos and anyone that's of any type of minority status, specifically because we ask that they provide a driver's license or a picture ID from their state before they vote. And they consider that voter suppression because God knows it must be really difficult for these illegal aliens to get driver's licenses so that they can vote for their Democrat that they've chosen. And that's what it's all about. It's to make sure that they have a continuous voting block of Democrat low information voters that will keep them in perpetual power. Because if they were to mandate that the illegals and anyone actually provide a driver's license, a valid driver's license, that then their own Democrat base couldn't vote 2, 3, 6 times, 20 times for the Democrat person they want to be voted for. Because the conservatives, they stand up for it and they say, no, you've got to have a valid ID to vote, because we don't want someone to be fraudulent on either side. But that's how the Democrats want to win. That's how they want to keep their power. They know that if they can continue to push the fraudulent side of their party, the fraudulent side of voting, and get as many people out to fraudulently vote as possible. And that's why you've got 110% of precincts voting in some cases, meaning that 110% of the population in certain cities voted for this particular Democrat, or even in cases where it's 98, 99%. That doesn't happen. 98% of the city doesn't turn out to vote for any one candidate. You just don't get that much turnout, period. But I guess when you've got the entire voter roll in front of you, and you just make sure that every person on that voter roll, that every name on there voted, who knows how many times, that's how you get the 110%. Meaning that if there are 10,000 people in a particular voting precinct or in a town that votes, yet 110,000 people voted, how's that possible? It's only possible if there was fraud, which means that entire session of voting shouldn't be counted. It should be thrown out. They should bring in, a real third-party independent auditor and physically watch the votes, because clearly they're voting illegally. But anyway, to get back to what I was saying, I do think it's funny that, when Democrats like Feinstein, when they become the victim, that's when they jump on the bus and want to stand up against illegal wiretaps and basically all of the ideals that they signed on for. You know, this is an extension basically of the Patriot Act that, like I mentioned last week's show to Brian the Lib from Naples, you know, when presented and controlled under the right circumstances and by the right set of leaders, you know, there's control there. There are controls put into place so that the government can't run roughshod over the people with their powers. But when you put it in the hands of a tyrannical regime like we have now, with the Democrats in control of the Senate, Democrat in control of the presidency, and what seems to be Democrat control of the Supreme Court, then they can do whatever they want with things like the Patriot Act. They can interpret it and interpret pieces of it to extend to wiretapping of individuals, citizens, phones that are not considered terrorists. You know, whereas under the original Patriot Act, the intent was to be able to listen to or tap phones of suspected Middle Eastern terrorists, because that's where they came from, Islamic terrorists who were speaking to our citizens back home, you know, some of the hidden cells they were trying to search out. But that now with the new regime, they've reinterpreted the rules to make it so that they can just wiretap my cell phone and Tripod Bill's cell phone and anybody they want. They don't even have to call them a suspected terrorist. But what they did to protect themselves from a potential lawsuit for this type of scenario is they redefined the word terrorist. So now you've got groups such as the Tea Party. And let me remind you who the Tea Party is. It's a group of Americans, multiple unrelated groups of Americans throughout the country who are not led by any one person. They might be a group of 9 people in the small city of Fort Myers, Florida, or a group of 100 people in Tampa, Florida. But these are people that are looking out for fiscal responsibility for our government. They want the government to spend our tax money wisely. You know, they're looking out to make sure that the government doesn't grow at an absorbent rate, that it stays either at its current size or smaller, like the Constitution and the framers intended. Yet, folks like Senator Dianne Feinstein have categorized the Tea Party groups as potential terrorists, that they're no better than Al-Qaeda. Yet, no one from the Tea Party has bombed buildings. No one from the Tea Party has come in and done mass shootings like they want you to believe. You know, as soon as there's a mass shooting at a school full of elementary school children, the first thing the news media and the Democrats want to do is they want to see real quick, and they're hoping to God that this is a right-wing extremist, some Tea Party fellow that, you know, certainly a white Tea Party extremist that's a Republican voter, so they can hold them up as their blue herring and say, see, we told you. These right-wing extremists who want guns, this is why they want them, because they want to shoot children. That way they can take our guns away a little easier. They can sell it to the dumbed-down American public a little easier. But the bottom line is they can't. Because every time they find one of these mass shooters, it turns out to be typically a white male, but it turns out that he's a left-wing extremist. He's a socialist or something along those lines. And then 90% of them, they're on some type of psychotic medication, some medication that's made them, you know, have hallucinations and act very violently. You know, some of the medications listed were Zoloft, Xanax, mind-altering drugs that apparently just root your brain out and give you homicidal tendencies. Not that, you know, these drugs are the fault of Democrats. That's not the the connection I'm trying to draw here. That it's just the fact of the hypocrisy of the left, that they want to make sure that they can try to find that there's a link between that shooter and Republicans or conservatives or Tea Party groups. But again, what they've done is they've redefined what a terrorist is. Tea Party, 9/12er, anyone who supports the Constitution, a constitutionalist. These are terms that 10 years ago would define an American. These are people that you wanted to look up to. These were our heroes. You saw someone, waving an American flag, and you thought, man, that's nice. I can appreciate that, especially I'm sure our veterans can. But now they've made it sound like that someone with an American flag in their front yard, they're a right-wing extremist, and all they want to do is shoot people. Well, I'll tell you this: I've got an American flag in my yard, and it's about due to be replaced. But my goal isn't to go shoot people. It would be to protect myself if the situation arises. And believe me, I'll do it with extreme prejudice to whoever it is. I don't care their skin color, because when it's all done, they'll be red all over. But that's what the Democrats have always done. That's what they've done for many years now, is redefine things. They redefine the types of people that are out there. They redefine decisions, things like abortion. As I was talking last week with Brian, at the end of the show, and I think it was a good segment, and Tripod's going to get that segment blocked out for us so we can put it up on our social media sites, because it makes it easier for folks like you to listen. If you missed last episode, you get a good 2 or 3 5-minute clip. It's easier for you to click on that than have to sit through 2 hours of something where you might have only got the 5 minutes out of the end of the show that you wanted to hear if you're on one side of the abortion issue or the other. But basically, the Democrats, they've over time been able to talk the uneducated American public into believing that the term abortion is way different than killing a baby. They're not killing babies. No, they're planning parenthood. That's the other term, which is obviously a name of a company now, Planned Parenthood. Instead of planning parenthood, they're just killing babies. That's a big portion of what they do. They don't plan any parenthood. They spend more time talking girls and women out of having children than showing them how to properly feed and clothe and care for their child. So because of their changing of definitions and going from killing babies to planning parenthood, it sounds a whole lot better. I tell you, if I was an uneducated, uninformed citizen and I heard the term Planned Parenthood, I would not associate it with killing babies. I would think, hey, that sounds pretty good. Yeah. Everybody should plan their parenthood if they could. Well, that's not what they do. That's what they want you to think. But that's just not how it goes. But that's how the Democrats do it. That's their goal. If they can change things like definitions of certain words to get the American public to buy off on it, then that's as simple as it gets. Back to Feinstein, as I started the show, and she's up in arms now because of the fact that her Intelligence Committee has been potentially wiretapped. She's asked for an apology and an acknowledgement that the CIA's actions were wrong, but she's received neither. Well, their own policies would warrant that she will never receive either, because according to everyone that's went in front of any of the Senate Judiciary Committees or any of the hearings committees, all they're getting is pleading the fifth. Lois Lerner was brought back in before Darrell Issa, because her attorney said that she was willing to answer questions on the IRS scandal that the media wants you to believe is not a scandal, and the Obama administration says there's not a smidgen of truth behind it. Yet, if there's no smidgen of truth that the IRS bullied conservative voting blocks, basically, then why would she have to claim the Fifth Amendment? Why would she plead the Fifth? If you've got nothing to hide, if you've done nothing wrong, if your boss didn't tell you to do anything wrong, and you didn't do anything wrong, then why wouldn't you just tell the congressman what you did? Tell him how correctly you did it. But she knows. She knows that she screwed up because she listened to her boss. Her boss, Barack Obama, and his minions. Someone had to give the order. Just like in A Few Good Men. You know, when Tom Cruise is the attorney for, and sitting in front of Jack Nicholson, and, he gets him eventually to tell him the truth. You can't handle the truth. But that's where he was going with it. If you've done nothing wrong, then just tell me how right it was. But they won't. They've been told that, I guarantee you, if you say a word, we will destroy you, your family, your fortune, whatever it is. They must have something really heavy over top of these folks, because no one in the Obama administration is saying anything. All they say is, oh, everything's great. We've done nothing wrong. And look at that shiny object over there. Look, your welfare is going to go up. Woo! Hey, look, we're getting more people on welfare. Isn't that great? No, we didn't do anything wrong here. Don't look over here. The nice thing is that you got folks like Edward Snowden who, while he may be a traitor in several people's eyes, and he quite possibly might be if he's given some of our secrets to other nations, and I guess just by putting it out there on the net, it's been given to other nations. But I think that much of what he's given has helped the American people see that that this administration, and going back even further, probably into the Bush administration, with parts of the Patriot Act, have opened the door and opened our eyes to see that our country's been spying on us for a little while now against what our Constitution allows. The Constitution is very, very specific. It doesn't allow for any of this. This is what the framers intended when they wrote the Constitution. That's why they wrote it, because they knew that if you put this type of power in these different organizations' hands and let them run without any controls over them, or if you've got a government like the Obama administration that's completely corrupt and all about power and perpetual power, you put them in charge, and they're going to use all those organizations under them for the best of their ability against the American people, and that's what the framers didn't want. That's why folks like Jefferson said that it's our responsibility as citizens to hold these folks accountable, and that if a revolution, whether it be a soft revolution or a true hardcore coup, needs to occur to cleanse oppressive regimes like this, then that's what they meant. People like Edward Snowden, who released this, he claims that he's accusing the Senate Intelligence Committee, the chair, that's Feinstein, of being a hypocrite. That's what I said earlier. It was double standards. She had no concern about widespread surveillance of ordinary citizens, but blows a gasket when she's being watched. Well, it's the same way she does with our guns, like I said. She's has no problem taking our guns away, taking away the guns from the citizens in her state. But she won't give up hers. And quite frankly, she personally doesn't need any guns. She has no need of guns, so she can say that because she has an entire armed security force protecting her 24/7, in an armored limo just like the president. And leaders that lead like this need that type of protection because they know that there are people out there that do not agree with their type of politics. There's people out there that are for what this country stood for, what the Constitution meant. Not a changing Constitution, not one that changes with the wind. But there's people that are sick and tired of seeing their country eroded and changing for the worst when we have such a great opportunity to get it back on track, because it is so far off track now with $17 trillion in debt, and that's okay. They'll just keep raising the debt ceiling. We won't be on the bubble. We'll just raise the debt ceiling. If we have a continuous amount of money to come in, or you don't really have to, as long as you just keep raising your credit line. And when you have no intention of ever paying it back or paying it off because you owe most of it to the private company that you created called the Fed, owned by the 10 most wealthy men on the planet, men or groups. And when they hold the nation's debt, that means they own the nation. When all of our home loans are eventually refinanced and financed through the Fed to cover the flop of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, then we aren't landholders anymore. My home isn't owned by me. It's owned by a bank, which eventually gets money funneled to it down the road by the Fed. So essentially the Fed owns my house. But it's funny, though, to see folks like Feinstein actually get fiery on the Senate floor and accusing the CIA of conducting potentially unconstitutional criminal searches on computers used by her staff. How dare you go after her? She's the one that writes their check. She pays their bills. In a statement to NBC News, Snowden said, "It's clear the CIA was trying to play keep away with documents relevant to an investigation by their overseers in Congress, and that's a serious constitutional concern." Then he added, "But it's equally, if not more concerning, that we're seeing another Merkel effect, where an elected official does not care at all that the rights of millions of ordinary citizens are violated by our spies, but suddenly it's a scandal when a politician finds out the same thing has happened to them." His comment referred to the German Chancellor Angela Merkel when she was outraged to discover that her phone calls had been monitored by the NSA. They have no problem when the ordinary citizens are being screwed. But when when our kings and queens, and I mean that when I say it, we think we're a free society, but not when we elect politicians who are in power forever, like Feinstein, who's been there, probably 30 years now. Essentially, she's the queen of California. She can have it too. I hope that state just cracks off and falls off into the ocean and drowns, and everybody in it with it. As far as I'm concerned, that's a state that's you got two types of people in this world: productive and unproductive. Well, that state is unproductive. They're a leech on society. And when my tax dollars are used to finance their overspending, that's when they need to go. And I've said that many times about California. If they could have just a big earthquake and just, they wouldn't even have to, I guess, sink into the ocean. But if they break off and float several hundred miles away and become their own country, I'd be happy with that. We're coming up on a break. Ledge Radio Show, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Her finally throwing a fit about the CIA, tapping the phone lines or internet or files of, her committee, but never having a problem with the American citizens being tapped and us being watched all the time. But that's just, like I said, typical of Democrats. Their hypocrisy knows no bounds. And in searching through some of the media of the day, I found a nice little audio clip. On February 28th, MRC TV's Dan Joseph stopped by the DNC, that's a Democrat National Convention, winter meeting to ask committee meeting members just how much of the opposition to President Obama is racist. You got different committee women answering him, and you'd be surprised. Well, you may not be surprised at some of the findings, but it's amazing to me how these folks, if these folks legitimately believe the words that are coming out of their mouth, because they actually believe that instead of folks like me being upset at Obama's policies, that I just don't like him because he's black. Now, let's also remember he's half white. So maybe I'm a racist because he's white. Maybe I don't like this president because he's a white guy. He's half white guy. I mean, I've told many people my first choice for president when he ran the last time, 2012, was Herman Cain. He's not just a black guy. He's a full black guy. He doesn't have a white mother and a black dad from Africa. He's full-on black. Slave blood all through and through, from Georgia, Atlanta. Southern black dude. Probably was a Democrat as a child, all the way growing up. Parents, I'm sure, were Democrats. But then he saw the light and realized, hey, wait a minute. It was the Republicans that set my family free. Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, not a Democrat. Democrats never did anything for black people except get them hooked on food stamps and welfare. They've got them hooked so they can keep themselves in perpetual power to hold on to that voting block, because they've got the carrot over the top of the donkey with their welfare check going, just keep voting for us and we'll keep the checks coming. Because them evil Republicans, they're going to make you work for a living. God forbid you get off your couch and work for a living. But I thought this audio was pretty good. It's just Dan Joseph, asking the questions, and you'll hear the responses. So let's cue this thing up for cut one.
There's been a lot of talk, especially on the Democratic liberal side, about much of the opposition to President Obama not being about his policies, but being about his color, his race. Do you see that as a big problem?
Of course it is.
If you had to look...
Of course it is. When you ask any of them, that's what they're going to say. Of course that's the big problem. Nothing about his policies that are a problem. There's no issues with his policies. He's a great man. He's done great for this country, even though we can't name one positive thing he's done realistically. What has he done? Nothing. He gave free health care to people. No. He gave health insurance to people that already got health care provided for free. So now they have health insurance at the expense of higher health care premiums for everyone that already paid for health care. So no one got anything free except for the people that already got it free. But now when they're told to go purchase a plan, no, that's too expensive. So then the government, what do? Just like I told you what they do with what the Democrats have been doing to the blacks for the last 40 years, buying them off. Oh, well, if you can't afford it and you don't make any money, we're going to give you a subsidy. Well, that's just another word for a bribe. We're going to take some money from one person. We're going to give it to you. this person over here, this guy, he makes too much money. So we're going to take some of his money. We're going to give it to you. So now you can use his money to pay for your health insurance. And you can continue not working because now you're getting something for free. And we'll continue on with the interview.
Look at the opposition to President Obama. What percentage would you say is about his race, and what percentage would you say is about honest disagreement with his policies?
Golly, that's a good question.
And I was just thinking, to me, in 2010, the Republican infighting took a particularly dangerous tone because it wasn't just about infighting anymore. It was about taking our country back with the resurrection of the Tea Party, and it was very, very racial.
Oh, the Tea Party. There they go. Very, very racial. Well, the only people that made it racial were those on the left, the left-wing media, because they've got nothing to cling to. They have to make it about race. If they don't make it about race, Obama loses. That's why Hillary Clinton didn't win the nomination. She couldn't use race because we were already running a female candidate. Sarah Palin, we had Michelle Bachmann. They couldn't use Hillary Clinton at the time. They may have been able to get away with it a few years ago when the Republicans weren't running a female for president or vice president. Then they could, of course, say that Republicans are anti-women, which they did with Romney anyway. They said he was anti-woman, even though the man employed thousands of women. But that's what they like to do. They've got to have their niche. And with Obama, they've got it. Because no one in the country wants to be called a racist. That's like the worst thing you can be called now is a racist. If you're a racist, boy, you lose your job. You'll be plastered all over television. Your career, your life is over. Well, I'm done with it. I could care less what they call me. I'll call a spade like it is. You're either productive in society or you're not productive. Let's continue on here.
There's been a lot of accusations thrown out there about the Tea Party, that there's a lot of racial animosity towards President Obama. If you had to put a percentage on it, how much of the opposition to this president would you say is based on issues, and how much of it would you say is based on race?
I think it's about equal.
Oh, about equal. So 50%. 50% of the opposition to President Obama is purely race, even though a large group of the Tea Party was supporting the black guy, Herman Cain, the black guy from Georgia. So clearly we're racist because we wanted the other black guy to win. Like I said earlier, maybe we were racist because we didn't want the half-white guy. He wasn't black enough, so we wanted the real full-on black guy that knows the true vernacular, that doesn't change his speech depending on the crowd he's in front of. Because Obama can talk union in front of a bunch of union thugs, or he can talk black in front of some folks down in South Carolina. But Herman Cain was Herman Cain the entire way through. Colonel Allen West, another black guy, staunch Tea Partier. One of the most conservative folks we've ever had in our party. Yet we're the racist. When we supported guys like him, they didn't want to hear that. That destroyed all of their evidence. But it's amazing because when you're on the left and you're a Democrat, all you've got to say is just repeat the same lie over and over, and the uninformed voter, the dumbed down America, will buy it. Because why? Well, they've heard it several times. I heard him say that 3 or 4 times. It's got to be true. I was watching that MSLSD channel, and he said it 3 or 4 times. It's got to be true. The Republicans are racist, Democrats are not. And that, I don't know, that Allen West guy, he's an Uncle Tom, whatever that means.
About equal, 50-50.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty high.
We
Are we talking 50-50? We talking
I think it's over 50%.
over?
Over 50%. Oh, my. Wow. Now we got 51 to 75% of all white people that are conservative and Tea Parties, they're all racist now. That's why they don't like Obama. Has nothing to do with the fact that he shoved Obamacare down our throats. Has nothing to do with Common Core. Nothing to do with the IRS bullying us, stopping our conservative groups from forming their LLCs. No, it's just because he's black. That sounds legitimate.
50%.
I have not done any studies, obviously.
Oh, obviously you've done no studies. You're just a racist, because that's the people that claim racism. People that claim racism are the racists. They are the ones that got ahead by using the race card. She got her job because she is a racist, and she used race baiting to get her job.
That some of this Tea Party anger is racist.
Oh my God, that almost sounded like Nancy Pelosi. I'm sure it was not, but it sounded like her. You know, the whitest of white ladies you can find, someone who's never even talked to a black person unless she absolutely had to, just on camera for votes.
Maybe 30%, 40%.
Oh, let's just take a shot in the dark. 30, 40%. It's got to be in there somewhere. If I put this on MSNBC, they're going to buy it. All the listeners, CNN, they all think we're all racist. All white people are racist. All Tea Partiers are racist.
Wow, so 30%, 40% who don't like him just because of his race. Wow.
But the tenor and tone of the method of which people address the president as Obama is disrespectful.
The tenor and tone of which we address President Obama. So the fact that he's destroying the country from the inside out and we see it and we call him on it, that's the wrong tenor and tone. That's what makes us racists. Yeah, I'll buy that for $1.
Just in that.
Obviously, as an African American, did you know the Tea Party was here the other day for their 5th anniversary, their 5th birthday party?
I care not to think about it. I'm not going to just talk about the Tea.
You know, that's something else here that strikes me. Now, this was the reporter asking this. As an African American, did you know that the Tea Party celebrated their 5th anniversary? What, even that question, I mean, I think this guy's actually on my side, but to pose that question that way, I didn't realize that committee woman was actually here visiting from Africa, and then got her American citizenship while she was here, because to me that would be what an African American is. I mean, I've got Irish in me, so I don't call myself an Irish American. You know, Tripod doesn't call himself whatever, a German American. He looks kind of German from over here, a little Hitlerish, I'm pretty sure. He looks pretty anti-black as far as I'm concerned. I mean, he's a white guy, so he's got to be. Tea Party or not, he's got to be racist. I didn't hear the Cherokee Indians want to be called Cherokee Americans. No, I mean, they were here first. You can just call them Cherokees if you want, if that's what they want to be called. But this whole labeling of groups, African Americans. Do we call Cubans Cuban Americans? Does Marco Rubio demand to be called a Cuban American? Otherwise, if you don't call him that, you are a racist against Cubans? Because that's where he came from. He actually came from Cuba. He literally, in his lifetime, was brought here from Cuba by his parents, yet he doesn't demand to be called a Cuban American. He's proud enough to be called an American because he came to America. Yet these blacks in Congress, these committee women, these political elites on the left, they want to be called African Americans. Yet they weren't brought here from Africa. Their parents weren't brought here from Africa. They were brought here from Africa about 10 generations ago. And yet they're so unproud of being called American that they want you to call them African American. Sounds legitimate.
Tea Party, I think there's a string of racism of people that dates back to this president, even before then.
I mean, Tea Party is a new name that we put on Southern conservatives now. We never used to call the Southern hardline, borderline neo-Confederate part of the Republican Party that special name.
Now that's a new one for me. I didn't realize that only the Tea Party was in the South. So now, even though the South used to be all Democrat, because that was your plantation owners and your slave owners that were Democrats. Now all of a sudden the South is full of Tea Party, Confederate, Republicans. I'm really confused because Abraham Lincoln, who was the president of America during the Civil War, when the North, and he was on the North side, was fighting the Southern Democrat Confederates. But now all of a sudden, now these Southern Tea Party groups are Southern Republican Confederates. There they go again, changing definitions. And if they say it on MSNBC 2 or 3 times, the uninformed voter will buy it. Like I just said, Colonel Allen West, black man, colonel in the Army, conservative Tea Partier. But how's that possible? He's black. Well, he must be an Uncle Tom then. He must be a sellout to the white people. Well, shoot, maybe let's see if we can find another one. Oh, then Herman Cain, businessman. Oh, from the South, he can't be conservative because he's a black guy. If he's a black guy, he's got to be a Democrat. Got to hate the white people because they hate him. Really odd. I'm having a hard time buying it.
Till now.
You just had a president that was virtually illiterate.
Oh, there, George H.W. Bush. George W. Just president was virtually illiterate. The man couldn't even read or write, yet he made it to the presidency. I don't think she was racist at all. Now, this man, I believe he went to Yale or Harvard. I think it was Yale. Graduated Yale. But he was illiterate. He must have got there on a football scholarship, and they just passed him from year to year because he was so great at football. And then he became a pilot for fighter planes because he was virtually illiterate. So because George W. chose not to read off a teleprompter, and he could actually speak from the heart, or from written prepared comments from Dana Perino or himself, he's virtually illiterate. No, she's not racist. And it's all Bush's fault. Sounds legitimate.
But nobody's said anything about him.
No, nobody said anything about George W. He's been held up like an angel in the media for the last 13 years. I mean, for 8 years while he was president, they made him look like the devil, treated him like he was the devil to America. When in nine months of his presidency, we were attacked by the terrorists on 9/11. Then he went after him like he did, and they never attacked us again. And for those of you that don't remember, Bill Clinton was warned about that terrorist, Osama bin Laden. He did nothing about it. He just handed the basket over to George Bush. Then we were attacked. And then George Bush, he dumped some bombs on them, killed a lot of them terrorists over there, made them so scared that they weren't going to mess with that cowboy. He was worse than his dad, they thought. This man wasn't going to put up with no mess. But yet the media called him every name in the book, not because they're racist. They didn't say it was because he was white. They said it because he was virtually illiterate.
You know, he could be Jesus Christ incarnate.
Did she just say Barack Obama could be Jesus Christ incarnate? So he's the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, the man that spent 20 years in Jeremiah Wright's church of black liberation theology, preaching communism and anti-white rhetoric. That's the man that's Jesus Christ incarnate.
Care.
You don't think so?
I know not.
You're talking about George W. Bush?
In my opinion.
I think he could read, though, right?
Barely.
No one ever said Barack Obama couldn't read. He reads great off the teleprompter. He's a great orator. Speaks very well as long as he's reading it. But you get him off script, and he's a train wreck.
You can read, though, right?
A little bit.
A little bit? I think you have to be a DNC committee woman.
Well, I thought it was pretty... I didn't learn anything new. I mean, for me, because I don't consider myself an uninformed voter, like many that are out there, and most folks that listen to programs like this are not the uninformed voters. You know, the folks that listen to programs like this are folks that care about their country, typically. They're concerned in the direction that it's going. They're concerned with what people like this president are doing to this country. You know, there's a big difference between people that pay attention and people that pay attention to Miley Cyrus. You know, you can tell really quickly where someone's attention lies when you see what they look at on the internet when they're not productive, when they're just scrolling along, and you can check out the news sites that they look at. You know, and they look at NBC, you know, some of the teen sites, and they want to know what Justin Bieber's up to, what Gene Simmons is doing, Miley Cyrus, like I mentioned earlier. Those are the things that really interest them, because that's really going to affect their life, what they eat later. It's going to affect who they vote for, because this president's been smart enough to indoctrinate those idiots and get them to carry the water for him so that they would tell the uninformed idiots that are listening to their shows on TV and on the internet to vote for this president because he's so great. And because of our uninformed idiots that are so uninformed, remember, they've heard it 2 or 3 times on MSLSD, so they buy it. That's what we're up against, folks. We're up against people that are so ridiculously stupid that they can't think for themselves. And they allow the media, the left-wing, socialist, Marxist, communist, whatever you want to call it, media to control what they see, hear, and believe. And that's a shame, because they're missing the big picture. You know, I want to get into something when we come back from break. It's not a big issue. It's not a political issue, but it's something that I'd like to speak about. And since this is my show, I will. Fast food. There's a lot of people that are against fast food these days. You know, and sometimes you just have to eat some fast food to sustain yourself between point A and point B, and it's just what you got to do. But McDonald's can't figure out why their sales are down for the 4th straight quarter. Well, I know why they're down. I can tell you why their sales are down, why Wendy's food sucks, why Taco Bell's food sucks, and that you only eat it when you absolutely have to or you're drunk. Yeah, I got some experience with that. Plenty. I bought the Plenty pack from Publix. But I'll tell you why. When we get back from break, we'll get into that, and then we got some more interesting information coming up from theblaze.com regarding the IRS and Lois Lerner. There's always something new coming out. So stay with us. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. Ledge Radio Show. We'll be back. Welcome to the second hour of the Ledge Radio Show. I'm JD, and the phone lines are open, 239-689-8674. for the viewers around the world watching live streaming video on the Ledge Cam. That's 239-689-8674. For those of you that aren't smart enough to notice, that is the same number. You can visit our live stream at ustream.tv and search the Ledge Radio Show. We appreciate you coming back with us. Always appreciate Tripod Bill being in studio, making sure everything's running smoothly. And we got our call taker, Chelsea, outside in the heat, taking the calls. Looks like we got a caller on the line right now on line 1, Tripod. Looks like we got John from somewhere up north. What's up, John?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
Very good. What can we do for you today?
Well, I just wanted to let you know I was listening to your show, and I heard you comment about Mr. President Clinton. Sorry, I don't want to disrespect him too much. President Clinton being alerted about the potential terrorist threat in Afghanistan. I just wanted to clarify that you understood. You know who notified him of this, correct?
The specific person, you mean?
Yes, one individual notified President Clinton of the immediate threat, specifically a man named Osama bin Laden.
Oh, it wasn't Monica Lewinsky?
No, there's one individual notified him specifically about the immediate threat by this one individual, Osama bin Laden. Said if you don't do something about him now, he will attack America, and it will not be good.
So Osama bin Laden warned him himself, you're saying?
No.
Oh, okay.
I said there was a man.
All right, well, who is it?
I'm asking you if you know who it was.
No, but I'm sure I could Google it in about 30 seconds, or you could just tell us.
Okay. Oliver North.
Who is it?
Oliver North.
Oh, well, there you go. I would believe that, because that man had a lot of knowledge.
Oliver North came to President Clinton in his early term and said, President Clinton, we have a threat. His name's Osama bin Laden. We have an opportunity to neutralize the threat, and we request that you do so. He laughed him out of the Oval Office.
Well, if you remember correctly, one of President Clinton's first acts in office as a president was to allow gays in the military, because that was such a hot topic for him. I mean, obviously, if I'm just got elected, I mean, that's my first thing I'm going to do too, is pick something like that to sign a law immediately allowing gays in the military, because that's so important for our country. Instead of taking action against a known terrorist and thug that, eventually, sent some planes over here to kill over 3,000 of our American citizens.
Right, correct. Well, Oliver North, he actually served during the Bush and Reagan administration as the National Security Council, and he was involved. I don't know if you're familiar with. I'm just a big history buff.
I remember Iran-Contra.
Yep, that's what I'm just going to ask you. The political scandal that actually released U.S. hostages in Lebanon. Yeah,
I remember that, and if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it Oliver North that would not? I was young when this happened. I was probably, I'm going to say 10 to 14, somewhere between 10 and 14 years old at the time. So politics wasn't something I was paying attention to at the time, but I remember it being a huge story. And was it Oliver North that wouldn't, he wouldn't reveal sources or something? Or, why don't you fill us in for the folks that, like me, that don't remember completely?
Well, that's exactly what happened. It was a big scandal, but he wouldn't reveal any type of sources or anything. He basically let Lebanon know that he had some stuff on him, and it ended up, long story short, into the release of the several U.S. hostages in Lebanon. And Oliver North is a military historian. That's all he's done all his life was study military and strategies. And when he came to Clinton and warned him of it, he's a lieutenant colonel in the United States Marine Corps, comes to warn the President of the United States, who he was also a member of the National Security Council, said it's time that we take out this threat. If we don't, he will attack us. He will attack us on our soil, and it'll be detrimental. And Clinton laughed him out of the Oval Office.
Well, he was busy.
Oliver North said, all right, if that's the way you're going to do it. He went out and built a bunker. And lived in the bunker. And he still has a bunker because he's not sure of how things are going to play out.
Well, I would certainly recommend to most folks, if you could afford a bunker these days, to go ahead and get one, because I don't know that you're going to need it right away for foreign forces, but you may need it for folks like FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security to defend yourselves against our own forces, at least until our military gets back home to help us defend ourselves against our own oppressive government.
Sure, absolutely, and that's I actually interned for the United States Congressman out in D.C. and during the Clinton administration, and that's how I was very familiar with Mr. Oliver North and his warnings to the not only the president but the Congress.
Did you smoke any cigars with the congressman that you were interning with?
No.
Okay, just checking. Hey, go Gonzaga tonight! Woo!
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, for no particular reason, but it sounded like a good team. It kind of reminded me of some Beans, I think.
Who are they playing? Like
BYU. I think it's some Mormons. I'm pretty sure. It's a Mormon team. They're probably not very tall.
Yeah, I'm sure so.
Yeah. Well, hey.
I just heard I heard your comment about Clinton being alerted about the.
Yeah, I knew he was alerted, but I did not know who alerted him. So I appreciate that information, and it's always good when our callers are smarter than us and they can educate us on some of the facts out there, because obviously I can't be all knowing. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely, I'm just I'm a big U.S. history buff.
How big are you? Would you say you're 300-400 pounds? I mean, how big do you think you are?
550 maybe.
550, yeah, that's pretty big.
Yeah, well, I feel like that sometimes when I'm trying to get out of bed in the morning.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's going to lead me right into our next story. Caller, thanks for calling in. John from up north somewhere, thanks a lot for the call, and thanks for listening to the Ledge Radio Show. So, in talking to John from up there, and he's a 550-pounder, he's a pretty big guy. I'm sure he gets a chance to eat a lot of fast food, like I was talking about. And this is something that I thought about for a while, because I do like fast food. I enjoy. It's got a lot of flavor, and it's probably all that old grease, like 3 or 4 months old. It's had a lot of, bugs and what have you in it, but it's got good flavor. I mean, anybody that's had fast food knows it's got flavor. Good, bad, or indifferent. Might have a little aftertaste, but especially the pink slime in the meat sometimes. But I look at the changes that these restaurants are making. Let's go with McDonald's in particular. So McDonald's has their, it's the world's largest restaurant chain, and for the last 13 months, their sales have fallen. And it's fallen 0.3%, even in February. Well, I mean, 0.3% is almost nothing, but I guess they notice it because they track all this stuff. But point being, they keep changing their menu. They keep adding crap on the menu that has no relation to what McDonald's was started with. They started with a burger, okay, a single, like a Big Mac or whatever it was, quarter pounder, whatever it might have been back then, just a regular cheeseburger. Well, instead of going into wraps and chicken wings and stuff that they can't cook because they microwave all that junk and it tastes worse, they got salads and whatever other stupid crap they try to make. Stick to what made you a restaurant. Stick to your burger and concentrate on making that burger better. Instead, they've expanded into all these other menu items and made their own burger worse by trying to make it faster and faster to where, yes, they fried their patty at some point, hopefully that day, on a griddle. I'm sure it was frozen to begin with. Big pack of frozen patties. But then they put them in this little warmer tray that's in some kind of liquid, or it makes its own liquid and it just stays hot for who knows how long. But then when they're ready to make the burger, then they assemble it all. Then they stick it back in the microwave. Because if you notice, you get your sandwich, the bun is hot. Buns shouldn't be hot unless they came off a grill. And they don't have a grilled bun. It's a hot, soggy bun. A lot of times it's stale. Because instead of concentrating on the food item that made them famous, they changed the menu 100 times. I don't go to McDonald's for their chicken nuggets. Have you seen their chicken nuggets? They don't resemble chicken. They do resemble a nugget of something. some type of pressed meat product, but it's terrible. That has almost no flavor other than the grease it was cooked in. That's the flavor. It's a chicken nugget grease flavor. Which leads me to Burger King. Have you seen Burger King's chicken nuggets? I haven't seen the recent ones, but the last ones I've eaten, the last ones I tried, they were in the shape of chicken feet. Why would anyone buy a chicken nugget that looked like a chicken foot? Stick to what made you famous. The Whopper. A flame broiled burger. It's got a decent flavor when you don't screw it up. You got 100 different menu items that don't belong on your menu. Simplify your menu. Use better ingredients, better meat. Use actual meat, maybe real beef at some point. And I guarantee you'll have more sales. Stop trying to appease everyone. You know, you're called Burger King. Don't cater to the vegan. Don't cater to the vegetarian. You thought, oh man, we're missing out on this portion of the purchases out there. We're not getting the vegetarians in here because we don't have a good enough salad. You know what? Change your name to something else then. Don't be called Burger King and then sell salads because your salads suck. Which leads me into Taco Bell. Taco Bell, when I was a kid, they had great tacos. Mom would bring home a pack of 12 tacos. It was pretty good. We all ate tacos. Every week they're coming up with something new. Now they've gotten in bed with Doritos. So I guess they realized their tacos suck so bad that now they got to come up with a new shell that's the color of a nacho cheese Dorito. Does your taco not have enough flavor? Is it so tasteless that now you have to have Doritos in your taco? What about that stupid one with the corn chips? It's a burrito-looking thing with corn chips in it. I don't even know what they're called. Fritos. Their burrito's so crappy that they had to put Fritos in it to flavor it up. Maybe use some real meat. Work on the product that made your business successful to begin with. Make it better. You will have more sales. Don't cater to the vegans at a taco place that sells beef tacos. Don't try steak. Stay away from steak tacos at Taco Bell. They don't make steak. Whatever they're calling steak never was steak, and it's still not steak. They suck at those. Which leads me to Chick-fil-A, my favorite fast food restaurant. Chick-fil-A, Christian-owned, closed on Sundays. They use real chicken, and they sell chicken there. Almost every product is chicken-based. Chicken salad, chicken nuggets, chicken strips, chicken sandwich. They don't have burgers because they're not trying to get the burger crowd. They got a chicken salad for people who still like chicken. They got a great cookies and cream milkshake. Eat it all the time. Had one last night with some chicken nuggets. Get the Polynesian sauce. It's excellent. But that's a fast food restaurant that hasn't tried to cater to everyone, to every group. They started with a product. They stuck to it. They made the product the best they could. They cook it in peanut oil, so it's a little healthier. And it's excellent. And they have sales that go up every quarter because they're not trying to change like McDonald's and Burger King and Taco Bell. Don't even get me started on Long John Silver's. God. Whenever I eat there, it reminds me of why I haven't eaten there in 10 years. It's like the salad shooter when you're done. But that's my rant on fast food. So the bottom line is build your product, stick to your product, make your product better. Don't try to change products to appease every group out there. Doesn't work. Only gets worse. A lot of clicking going on in here. Everybody's got to click their mouses. So, back on topic, back on point here, politics. The Ledge Radio Show with JD. Tripod Bill streaming live over here. So today, the House Republicans released a scathing, they used the term scathing, report on Lois Lerner. No, it's not the chick from Superman. Looks like the question is, could congressional contempt charges follow? Question mark. This is from Beckett Adams from The Blaze, theblaze.com. House Republicans released a scathing 144-page report Tuesday. I don't know how, I mean, she was just there last week. How they get a 144-page report? These are the people you should get to write reports for college. They can come out with a 144-page report on IRS testimony after just a few days of the chick being there, and she answered 4 questions with I plead the fifth, and you got a 144-page report from that? That's who I want writing my college papers. But anyway, it was for her involvement in the IRS targeting that I mentioned earlier, targeting of conservative groups. The latest development, what could perhaps lead to contempt charges, but probably not, because no one in the Obama administration ever gets charged or found guilty of anything. They either disappear or get promoted. The report, which was released without Democrats signing off on it, thank God, because they would have shredded it, states that Lerner created, quote, created unprecedented roadblocks for Tea Party organizations and worked surreptitiously to advance new Obama administration regulations that curtail the activities of existing 501c4 organizations. Imagine that. Lois Lerner, the former head of the agency's tax exemption unit, so she was in charge of tax exemption, apologized last year for the IRS's inappropriate targeting of conservative groups applying for tax-exempt status. But she later invoked her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. And for those of you that were listening earlier, you heard me say, if you were not guilty, why would you plead the Fifth? She resigned from the agency and has since refused to answer any questions about her possible involvement in the targeting. Well, I guarantee you, if you waterboard her a few times, she would answer the questions. Would you agree, Tripod? Little waterboarding gets questions answered? Yeah. He shakes his head. It puts the lotion on. Tuesday's report accuses Lerner of obstructing Congress's investigation into the targeting scandal, saying she misled investigators about her role. Well, I don't know how she misled them, because all she said was, I plead the Fifth because my counsel advised me to do so. But the most damning of all, quote, even when she found that the actions of subordinates had not adhered to a standard that could be defended as not per se political, instead of immediately reporting this conduct to victims and appropriate authorities, she, Lerner, engaged in efforts to cover it up, the report states. Look, I don't care what she did. I want to get the person that told her to do it, because here's the thing. What did she have to gain? This chick works for a bureaucracy that never has to answer to anybody. No one at her branch gets voted in. They all have jobs forever. They all make unlimited amounts of money. What did she have to gain personally by obstructing conservative groups from forming nonprofit organizations? Nothing. She had nothing to gain. No motive. But let's see who had a motive. Well, it was the lead up to the 2012 elections. Who was running? Well, let's see. You had conservatives running, and you had President Obama, who is a Democrat, in charge of the IRS. Conveniently, the IRS targeted the opposition, in this case, which were conservative groups, to not allow them to form their organizations so they could not conduct business, get followers, get donations to help support Republican candidates throughout the country, and thus voter suppression was enacted. So that's the motive. The motive is from the president and his regime to demand that this woman do this, demand that she target conservative groups because she had no motive. She had no reason to do it. She was close to retirement. I mean, she had to be. She looks like she's about 105. Had to be pretty close. So why would she jeopardize her great career at the IRS unless her superior told her to do so? And it's funny because the guy running the IRS visited the White House, I think it was 142 times in the 2 years leading up to this investigation. He was probably there more than the president. The president was out playing golf that much. The report also includes dozens of emails between Lerner and her former colleagues that raise serious question about her knowledge of the targeting. For example, several emails show that Lerner received confidential taxpayer information on a non-agency computer system, meaning she had a separate non-IRS email that's illegal. Not allowed to have that working for the IRS. Everything has to be documented on their system. Come to find out, multiple employees had their own private emails that they used for this specific conservative targeting. Quote, her willingness to handle this information on a non-official email account highlights her disregard for confidential taxpayer information, the report states. Now, the other part of this report, what came out earlier in this investigation, was the fact that when her IRS emails were subpoenaed, she turned over her IRS emails, the official ones. But all of the unofficial ones on her hidden account were not turned over until it was discovered by the Inspector Solicitor General that she had a private email account. I mean, that's what a criminal does. Someone that is hiding something, that's what they're going to do. But again, what was her motive? Why? She had no motive. There was no reason for it. In an email chain titled, quote, with a question mark, end quote, Lerner discussed with her colleagues the possibility of a proposed denial for a tax-exempt status going to court. Quotes from the email, these guys are itching for a constitutional challenge, she wrote. Not your father's exempt organization, meaning back in the good old days when everyone was friendly. The emails don't paint a flattering picture of Lerner and her colleagues and imply that top IRS officials were not only politically biased, but aware that what they were doing was highly questionable. Again, I'm looking for the smoking gun here. JD's looking for the smoking gun. I want to know who gave the order. Because people like her, these government employee drones, they don't come up with their own message. They don't come up with their own agenda. She was told to do this by someone higher than her position, above her pay grade. But we'll wait and see if they come up with something else. It'll be certainly after we come back from break. And Tripod says we're up against a hard break right now, so we're going to fade into it. The Ledge Radio Show. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Ledge Radio Show, 239-689-8674. That's 239-689-8674. You can email me, jd@theledgeradioshow.com. Just coming up on our last segment of the show this evening. always something going on out there. And I noticed something while we were at break, something that came up. And this sounds about right. Obama's Department of Justice, and yes, of course it is Obama's Department of Justice. It's not the United States Department of Justice anymore because we've got someone in there just as corrupt as Obama and Attorney General Eric Holder running this ridiculous group. They've got so much time on their hands that they're filing a lawsuit against a school for violating a Muslim's religious rights. As I said last week, that's the only religion, Islam, that should be outlawed in this country. It's the only religion that is trying to destroy this country as a religion. I mean, Scientology's ridiculous too, but it hasn't really taken hold like Islam has around the world. And Scientologists, as ridiculous as they are, they're not sending suicide bombers to blow us up just yet. But according to Philly.com, Eric Holder's Department of Justice has filed a civil rights lawsuit against a Pennsylvania school for violating the religious rights of a Muslim employee for having to comply with grooming standards that were adopted by the district in 2010. According to the policy of the School District of Philadelphia, police officers and security guards are required to maintain their beards at a maximum length of 1/4 of an inch. Well, clearly the Muslim Sadiq Abu Bakr, who has worked for the district for 27 years as a school police officer and hasn't trimmed his beard even once. He was reprimanded for failure to comply and told that further disciplinary action would result if he failed to comply after he notified them that his religious beliefs prevented him from cutting his beard. I say reassign him to the shop class, because in shop class a long beard would work out well for the Muslim. Get him up close to the wood chipper, specifically. Little zzz, game over. Maybe let him use the little Hoover duster, the battery-operated one down at the bottom of the escalator. You got to get real close there, Sadiq. Get those crumbs up. Don't let your beard get caught in the escalator. That'd suck for you. But this is what our Justice Department does. They choose not to go after the Black Panther Party for stopping, for bullying conservative voters in Philly, holding batons and threatening people at the voting booth in 2012. But they will go after schools, their own schools, for actually having a grooming standard that doesn't agree with the one religion who's out to kill us. I don't find that odd at all. But I think I found a way to save everybody a lot of money when they file their taxes from now on. Just go ahead and claim 9 on your W-4 throughout the year. Then when you get your W-2 and the IRS wants you to send in your 1040 EZ file, and this is for you, Tripod, this ought to work out really well. Go ahead and claim as much as you want, and then at the end of the year when you send in your taxes, put a big red stamp on it that says, I plead the fifth. Saw this from a great Facebook post from Barack Obama's dead fly, referring to the flies that seem to hover around his face all the time at multiple media speaking engagements, reminding me of the Africans in Kenya with their horsehair brooms as they flop them across their backs like horses, trying to get the flies off of them. I'm thinking that's why they named their page Barack Obama's dead fly. But yeah, I think if we get a big red stamp that says I plead the fifth and send it in, we should be fine. I mean, if the head of the IRS can do it, why can't we do it to them? We pay their salaries, so they owe us. But I'll guarantee you the Barack Obama's Justice Department would file a federal lawsuit against us. Here's a funny post. I may spend the next few minutes just looking at posts on Facebook from a gentleman by the name of Lee Stranahan, coming from the page of Liberal Logic 101. Says, I'm not saying Putin is humiliating President Obama, but the last time a Russian treated an African American this way, Apollo Creed died.
He did.
He did too. Yeah, I was pulling for Apollo because I'm not a racist. Really wanted Apollo to knock that Russian out. But Rocky got him. Leave it to the Italian. There's always good stuff on Facebook, depending on Facebook is subjective, though. It's not objective. It's subjective. It depends on what pages you like by clicking like. If you like all liberal pages, like What Liberals Say or Proud to be a Liberal, then you're going to get their spin, which is mostly lies and BS. Then you got pages like I just mentioned, Barack Obama's Dead Fly. They post things. Now get this from the CanadaFreePress.com, monthly job creation averages. So Barack Obama has a monthly job creation average of 61,000. That's awesome. Stellar. When 400,000 people are losing their job every month, that works out really well. But you look back at Ronald Reagan, his monthly job creation average was 233,000. I'm not a math wizard, but that's about 4 times. Pretty good, I'd say, for all the people that hated Ronald Reagan. You hear about the Connecticut cop? This is for Liberal Brian down in Naples. Connecticut cop who threatened to kick in doors and confiscate guns. Made the comment on Facebook, actually. I guess be careful what comments you make on Facebook if you're a cop in Connecticut, because you could get suspended from the police force. He was arguing with his buddy, supposedly a longtime buddy. I guess the discussion got heated. But when his buddy mentioned that he was not going to comply and he had a weapon, and since Connecticut has now enacted some of the harshest gun confiscation laws in the country that will be shown to completely violate the Second Amendment of the Constitution, our Bill of Rights, a.k.a. This cop said that he couldn't wait to kick in his door and confiscate his guns, but he's been suspended. I don't know if that's justice or not, but I guess it's a ending to that story for now. Got a lot of stuff going on with the Malaysian airliner that went down. A lot of skeptics out there. Don't know why it went down. Interpol posted a couple pictures of 2 Iranians who were last seen boarding the plane. Ding, ding, ding. There's your answer. Let's see. What religion, again, is Iran? Pretty sure it's Coptic Christian. Maybe it's Jewish. Scientologist? Nope. It's Muslim. Islam, there you go. Killing the Malaysians. Killing them too. Must not have agreed with their choice of beard trimming that evening. There's all kinds of stuff you can get off of Facebook. Doesn't mean it's true, but there's a lot of it. Picture of world leaders at age 23. You got a young Netanyahu was a Israeli Defense Force Special Forces, because in Israel, every male and female is required to serve in their military for a minimum of 2 years. So Benjamin Netanyahu, the current president, was an IDF Special Forces soldier. Even Vladimir Putin, KGB officer, at 23 years old. Let's see, what was Barack Obama? Oh, yes, that's right. He was going to college, and he was the leader of the CHUM gang. I'm thinking that means mushrooms and a picture of him in a wide brim hat smoking pot. That sounds about right. I've got a few shirts from the I Support the Second Amendment Facebook page. They like to use the Greek term Molon Lab or Labe, depending on where you're from. Stands for, the literal translation was either come and take it or come take it, referring to, as far as we're concerned, come and take our gun. It's a nice page from them. I am one of 100% of Americans protected by the Constitution and born to the right to bear arms that shall not be infringed. Molon Lab. They've got like 200,000 likes on their Facebook page. Hopefully that's 200,000 folks with guns that are going to be standing up with us against the Obama administration when it's time. Here's a nice one. Obama's America. 92 million Americans not working. Americans for Prosperity. You know, I hate all the posts on there. People with their, all of a sudden, you know, you got these folks on Facebook that they're overnight successes when it comes to psychology. They're all giving you their upbeat story about how you can have self-success. And so every day they give you their little meme, it's called, about how to be better that day. Can't stand it. Can't stand it. Here's a good one from theexaminer.com. This is nothing new, but I'll mention it. It seems America's children are being indoctrinated into a radical left-wing political ideology by Common Core. No kidding. Common Core is now telling teachers to say, quote, that all right-wing extremist groups are fascist. And remember what we said earlier, right-wing extremist groups are now terrorists according to the Obama administration. That would include the Tea Party group, who is here to watch out for the spending of our government, to make sure they spend our tax dollars efficiently and effectively. They are now labeled as terrorists. So are folks that love the American flag and the Constitution. We are considered right-wing extremists, and now Common Core, and for those of you uneducated, low-information voters, that's the school curriculum that your child is being forced to learn by in all public and private schools now. Florida has adopted this. They just changed the name so that they would stop getting yelled at, and they call it the Florida Standards now. And since the leftists are in charge completely from the federal government down of all education of our students, they've got to choose the textbooks that they want our children to learn from, and in those textbooks, they are teaching them that, quote, all right-wing extremist groups, including people that love the Constitution, Christians, and white males, are fascist. That's always good. Love it. Here's one of those posts that I love to hate. Enjoy the little things in life because one day you will look back and realize they were the big things. Can't you come up with something better? Anything better? Oh, here's one better. This was something that my good buddy Larry Wilcoxon was going to call in about, but he's busy at a forum today or working late. Former Collier County Deputy Charles Bullock, who is accused of molesting a teenage boy inside a bathroom stall at the Coastland Center Mall, will not have to serve any time in prison. but will instead receive a 2-year probation. How is that even possible? I would say unbelievable, but actually I'm going to put that on Facebook. Unbelievable. You got to be able to spell it first. I'll just put crazy. It's a lot easier to spell. So we got these, as Charlie Daniels called them, panty waist judges, letting drug dealers go and letting child molesters go. And this guy wasn't just a child molester, he was a... Does it make it worse, Tripod, if he's a gay child molester? Or is that not politically correct anymore? If the kid was 18, that's cool, right? Because gay is cool now. Gay is in.
No, it's not.
Okay. Tripod says no. He's a gay hater. Pretty sure. Looks like it. White male.
Yes, I am.
Here we go. There are 1,500 newspapers, 1,100 magazines, 9,000 radio stations, 1,500 TV stations, and 2,400 publishers owned by only 6 corporations. Well, that's good. Last time I read this quote, it was only 3, so I guess things have changed on Facebook. Here's a status update. You can check the box for single, taken, or looking for a zombie apocalypse survival partner. Where's Militant Paul when you need him? He's busy with baseball tonight. Otherwise, he'd be calling in. Oh, it's a funny one. You got Hillary Clinton standing there, and in the background is the word count, I'm guessing, but she's blocking the O. And the phrase says, so there's a letter blocked. What difference does it make? You get that, Tripod? Count. She's blocking the O. Hillary Clinton. You know what that spells? I did hear that Denver, Colorado raked in $2 million in pot taxes last month. So I guess that's a plus.
Legalize it.
Well, here's the problem, though. They're going to legalize it, but then the government's going to price it so high that you can't afford it. Look what they did with cigarettes. What are they, $7 a box? $7 a pack for 20 cigarettes?
About 6.
6?
6.5.
6.5? Is that for the good ones?
Yeah.
Okay. That's here. There are more other places. Go to Canada. It's like $11.
New York, it's like 12.
$12 in New York. They don't want you to smoke. So let's say they legalize pot. They make pot to where it's too expensive to buy. So we're still going to buy, well, not we, those people, still buying them on the black market. Well, we didn't accomplish anything, did we? Or did we? I don't know. Maybe that was the goal. There's something. Fish tacos. Weird. You know what I'm saying? What if you wanted fish and you wanted a taco, you can go to that double drive-through with the Long John Silver's and the Taco Bell, and you can get the T4 with the Mexican pizza and the 2 Taco Supremes, and then you get like the L6, the Long John Special. You don't have to get a fish taco. They don't even go together. Why do you have fish and a flatbread with taco toppings? That's no good. You know, the Blaze has an interesting map out today. The Highway to Hell. Interactive infographic reveals the world's deadliest roads. We already know where they are. Just don't drive there. Stay off of 41, stay off I-75, I-95, I-10, you'll be fine. One of the latest picks from Barack Obama, it seems like everybody he picks to do a job is terrible. Obama's pick for Surgeon General. Now, as a Surgeon General, why would he care about gun control? But apparently, his Surgeon General, which will have almost unlimited power under Obamacare, also hates guns and doesn't like gun owners. So that's why they've made it a point that every time you go to the doctor has the right to ask you. No, he's not has the right. he's mandated to ask you and ask your children. They'll ask you if you have guns in your home. They'll ask your children if your parents have guns in the home. What does that have to do with health care? Not a thing. Nothing. Zero. Unbelievable, though. And it's funny that all of his picks are controversial. He picks the people that are the most leftist, socialist, Marxist. And this guy's a dot-head Indian. I mean, I can see him from here. This is his name, Dr. Vivek Halagiri Murthy, president and founder of Doctors for America, which grew from the campaign organization that was called Doctors for Obama. Started in 2008. It was the organization that advocated for a number of liberal initiatives, including strongly supporting the passage of Obamacare and the Medicaid expansion. They've been supportive of the Obama administration's failed push for expanding gun control laws. They successfully fought a proposed Florida law that would have prevented doctors from including in a person's medical file whether they are a gun owner. So they successfully fought the proposed law that would have prevented doctors from including that in their file. But I'll tell you, if my doctor asks me that, I will just lie, or I'll tell him I plead the fifth. Because if it works for the head of the IRS, it better work for us. The NRA says this is such a big scandal that they are scoring it. They sent out notifications to 5 million members asking them to contact their senator to vote against this nomination. Why does this president continue to pick these ridiculous leftists? Well, I know why, because they pass his agenda. They're for his agenda. Something to look in on for the uninformed voter, but I'm sure they will not. Might as well just stick to Facebook. That'll teach you everything you need to know. Just keep liking Miley Cyrus, Justin Bieber. You'll get everything you need to know from them. Did the Department of Energy shut off our electricity, our air conditioning? Because it is hot all of a sudden. Did you notice that? Is it like it?
I think so.
I think they did. We must have too much of a carbon footprint in here from all these computers running. But next week, we'll get Militant Paul back, or even Brian the Lib from Naples, so we can have some good debate in here. I always appreciate Tripod Bill wasting his time on a Tuesday evening to run this show for us and make sure that everything runs smoothly, and thank Chelsea, the call taker, for sitting out there in the heat, extra hotter than where we're at, to take calls from the callers. But I'll guarantee you there'll be something big that happens between now and next week. And if it does, we'll cover it on the Ledge Radio Show. Tripod, why don't you take us out? And we'll be back next week. Take care, everyone.